Have you ever wanted to learn Spanish but thought, I don't have enough time, I'm too old, or this just feels too hard?
Every year, thousands of people search how to learn Spanish, but almost all of them never actually start.
By the end of today's episode, you'll actually know how to learn Spanish. Get past those limiting mental blocks, and you'll be able to share your Spanish goal for this year in today's challenge, which we call El Reto, with a chance to get a shout out in next week's episode. Welcome to Spanglish Friends, the podcast for true beginner Spanish learners.
Hola amigos, I'm Val, your experienced Spanish teacher and co-host from Venezuela.
And I'm Em, your Australian co-host who's been learning Spanish for 10 years.
We'll help you get confident listening and speaking beginner Spanish with content you can actually use in real-life conversations.
Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on socials at Spanglish_friends. Let's get started.
Comencemos. Hola amigos, and welcome to our first episode of the year 2026, 2026, episodio 42, episode 42. We're so excited to have you back, and if you're new, bienvenidos. Welcome to the Spanglish Friends community.
Yes, and if you're a returning listener, welcome back. We've had a great break to rest and recharge. Now, whether you're listening at the start of 2026 or another time in the future, it's likely because you want to actually learn Spanish as a beginner.
If you're wanting to learn Spanish as a beginner, these are probably questions you've asked yourself before.
They are, how do you actually get started learning Spanish as a beginner? What helps you stay motivated when life inevitably gets busy? And what's the best way to learn Spanish without burning out or quitting?
We are tackling these questions today so you can set yourself up for success, no matter where or when you start your Spanish journey. This episode is going to be highly interactive, asking you to pause and really plan out how you're going to make it happen. So make sure you have a way to take notes. And at the end of the day, we want you to be able to speak Spanish confidently.
That's right. Love it, Prof. Val. So let's get started with the first question beginners usually have, which is, how do you get started learning Spanish as a beginner?
Most people don't start or quit learning Spanish because it's too hard. They quit because of their limiting beliefs. They tell themselves.
Yes, things like, I don't have the time, I'm just bad at languages, I've never been able to learn languages, or I'm too old. These are all mental barriers.
Exactly. We want to break down those barriers and share examples of learners just like you who have successfully learned Spanish.
That's right. So my example is of a 75-year-old Australian who I met during my first year of taking Spanish classes. So this was his first time ever learning a second language. His son was actually marrying a Colombian woman, and he wanted to be able to speak to her family and give a wedding toast in Spanish, which I thought was so beautiful. Now, this friend showed me that it's never too late to start learning Spanish. He absolutely crushed it. Sure, he might have sounded Australian when speaking Spanish, but his goal wasn't to sound like a native. It was to connect with his son's new family. And he did it.
Such a beautiful story and is such inspiring. And amigos, that's the key. The why behind learning a language is often about connection, not perfection. Whether you're 15, 30, 50, 70, or even 80 years old, it's believed that's the real first hurdle.
That's right. So Spanglish friends, have a think about what are your current limiting beliefs about learning Spanish? How are they holding you back?
Good question. Second question that you might be thinking as a beginner is, how do you stay motivated, especially when life gets inevitably busy?
So the key thing that Val and I have touched on in previous episodes is you need to understand why. Why are you learning Spanish? I started learning to speak Spanish because I wanted to be able to speak with my nephew, whose main language is Spanish. He was born in Chile. I wanted to be able to have a conversation with him. So my focus, my why, was to be able to speak to him in Spanish. So I focused on conversational Spanish, for example, rather than memorizing every verb, every grammar rule.
Exactly. Know your ultimate why. Set a purpose, a reason behind. Whether it's a trip abroad to a Spanish speaking country, connecting with family in their native language, or improving work prospects.
Yes. So we encourage you, pause this episode right now and write down those limiting beliefs that we discussed before and also your why. Why are you learning Spanish? What is going to keep you motivated to learn, or what is going to get you motivated to get started?
Then you need to figure it out time. How are you going to make time for Spanish? That's the question.
It is. And it's not a question of if you will get busy, friends. It's a question of when. Life is going to happen. Work will get crazy. People will get sick. Distractions will appear. You will be busy this year. So, how do you actually learn Spanish when you are busy?
I'd love here to share an example of one of my fabulous students who is a full-time doctor and a mother of two. Now, no one can argue that she is beyond busy, but she figured it out and now is taking classes during her lunch breaks.
Wow, she is a super mum. So you get it, friends. Okay, life is going to be busy. Everyone's lives are busy. So you need to prioritize. You do not need hundreds of hours to learn Spanish. You just need to be consistent. Consistency is the secret weapon that builds fluency over time.
For example, could you replace 30 minutes of doom scrolling on your phone with a short lesson each week? Could you listen to our podcast episode on your way to work for 15 minutes? Pause the episode here and write how are you going to make time to actually learn Spanish?
For example, a not great goal would be, I want to learn Spanish this year. It's not tangible. It's not measurable. A better goal could be, I want to be able to have a basic conversation in Spanish with my nephew by June this year. What's going to be your goal?
Great, that's more specific. Awesome. The final question you likely have as a beginner is, what's the best way to actually learn Spanish?
And the answer is, it depends. It depends on the person. But usually, I would say a blended learning approach often works the best.
Consistent classes, for example, are a great starting point. There are lots of online options. And yes, I offer classes to students too. Details are in our descriptions, one-on-one or group classes as well.
Couldn't recommend Profe Val enough as a teacher, so definitely head to our description if that's something you're keen on this year. But also listening practice, friends, is super essential. Make sure you're tuning in regularly to our episodes to get that listening practice. Plus, find other learning mediums that might suit your preferred learning style. For example, you might want to use language exchange apps to practice texting people in Spanish or Spanglish. You might want to watch TV shows or movies in Spanish with English titles. You might want to read. Find the methods that are going to work for you.
Let's give an example of a great goal set. You could commit to 1 or 2 hours of classes per week, 1 Spanglish episode per week, and 1 show in Spanish per month. This is simple, sustainable, and effective.
Yes. So take a memento right now. Pause this episode, write down, commit to at least one tangible action you are going to take to progress your Spanish learning. As Val mentioned, the how. How are you going to achieve the goal?
Amigos, what we've been secretly doing today is help you build a real Spanish learning action plan.
That's right. So together, it should now include the following. So feel free to go back to any part of the episode to recap. Your action plan includes, what are your limiting beliefs about learning Spanish? Do you have any still getting in your way? How are you going to make time to learn Spanish when life inevitably gets busy? What is your why behind learning Spanish? What is the thing that's going to keep you motivated? How are you going to achieve it? What are the forms of learning you're going to use, and how often are you going to do it? With all this, you're going to be able to learn Spanish in 2026 or beyond.
Perfect to start the year with clear goals and the most important, realistic ones. And this brings us perfectly into today's reto, our challenge of the day.
And this week's reto is about setting your Spanish learning goals. So tell us in English in the comments, what's your action plan? What's your learning goal for this year?
And most importantly, share 1 or 2 concrete actions you'll take to make it happen.
That's right. You might want to have that basic conversation with your nephew by June this year. So I'm going to listen to this podcast once a week and take classes once per week. We want that specific action plan.
And recuerden, amigos, remember, friends, your goal doesn't need to be perfect. We are not trying to reach perfection. It just needs to be real and achievable. We want something realistic and tangible.
That's right. So share your goal right now in the comments or direct message us on Instagram. We want to read them and shout them out in an upcoming episode. So who's going to start the year strong with us?
Talking about shout outs, our first shout out of the year. Yay! This goes to Sara, who texted us via Instagram saying, "Hola, encantó el podcast." She said that she loves the podcast.
Thanks, Sarah. That's awesome. She also asked us if we've got transcripts for each episode of the podcast, which Val and I are currently in the process of cooking up something behind the scenes for you all. It's something we're considering launching this year. So if it's something that might help you with your language learning journey, let us know in the comments.
Great work today, Spanglish friends. And remember, practice makes progress, not perfection.
Yes, if you're brand new, head back to our catalog of our first 41 episodes where we go over all the concepts you need to know in Espanol, how to introduce yourself, how to pronounce words, all the basics you need to know.
And next week, spoiler alert, we'll be answering a common beginner question, how to say where you are from in Spanish. De donde eres, and we'll keep building your Spanish step by step together.
Woohoo! We can't wait to see your Spanish progress this year. Ciao!
Nos vemos! Thanks for listening to Spanglish Friends. We're both so proud of the time you're investing to level up your Spanish skills.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, follow us, leave a rating, or tell a friend about the show. It helps our awesome community grow.
Join fellow beginner Spanish learners by following us on Instagram and TikTok at Spanglish_friends.
Congratulations on taking another step in your Spanish learning journey.
Hasta la próxima, amigos.